Like an attorney, I mean,
That's a.
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, he comes with these, okay. All right, I see we have no public comments, so we'll move past that. Need the declarations of conflicts of interest. I don't know, Rolinda, or Dan has on the DISP. Oh, Rebecca, who's listening, child care group. Any other ones? Okay, so noted. And we will move into section 3. And Lynn Hoffman is here, and I see we have some hardware in front of us.
Scrap iron. Good morning, everyone. So I was honored to represent Workforce Solutions Greater Dallas at the Texas Economic Development Council event where we were awarded the Workforce Excellence Award. I think the trophy is around here somewhere, but if it's not, it's on the front page. There you go. Award is actually made up of 5 different components, and what we featured was our innovative partnership with Prologis. Innovation is one of the highlights of this particular project, and that collaboration and strategic partnership with Prologis has been groundbreaking. We're offering online training to introduce people into the transportation, distribution, and logistics industry. One of the other components is transferability. In other words, what lessons have we learned that others could utilize across the state, across the nation? We're able to share that information out with them and to help to develop these same types of partnerships across the country. Community commitment and leveraging the funding. So this is a privately funded grant where we've been able to raise the funding with our public funding as well. Over a $500,000 commitment so far from Prologis. Look forward to many more years of that opportunity. Measured objectives. So since late 2020, we have been working with Prologis, and over 3,000 individuals have enrolled. Over 10,000 courses have been completed, and over 1,800 people have gotten jobs in the transportation, distribution, and logistics industry. In 2024, we'll enroll 700 individuals, and 400 or more are going to see those job opportunities come to fruition. The secondary benefits are the fact that with this private funding, we're able to offer incentives to individuals, and over $120,000 that we given in incentives. You can see how this will boost our economy. It helps to increase their wages above the over $22 an hour that they now see once they leave this program and this project. So that's been an amazing boost for the economy. In conclusion, this partnership really is, I think, an example of how our board is moving forward as being innovative and showing these private and public partnerships. And it was a great honor to be a part of that. If you have any questions, I'm willing to answer those.
Well, I just want to point out this is from the Texas Economic Development Council, which is really important that we reinforce that jobs is about economic development. And how important it is that we're sitting here in the Dallas Regional Chamber, which is really the economic force for Dallas, for the whole region. We're sitting here, we bring home an award from the Texas Economic Development Council. So great work, 1,800 jobs I hear through Prologis in distribution area, which is the fastest growing real estate area in Dallas. So all that lines up perfectly with our strategic plan. And then I think I told our leader that I wanted to see some hardware during my term. So we got to keep bringing it in. So thank you very much. Thank you. All right, we're going to move to page 9. And in there is our consent agenda, and part of that is the minutes from May 15th. Also contained in there is the policy adopting state rules. Ashley, would you run us through that real quickly?
Sure. So
as usual, these policies have no local flexibility. So they have been adopted by the state and they would like us to adopt them locally as well. I'll just point out the last one on this list for time's sake is related to the PROUD grant. This is the PROUD guide on page 13, that top chart. And you'll hear more about the PROUD grant later. We mentioned it at the meeting last month. This was a grant that was not just given to us through formula funds, but that we actually went out and applied for and won. And so we're working through rules that come from this guide and we're procuring, and you'll hear about that later in the meeting. Also on this page, we have endorsement of external applications. So I'll just point out the third one on this chart to you is Department of Labor Workforce Pathways for Youth. And this is for bridges from school to work to serve adults with disabilities ranging in age from 17 to 21. So we think that's a very exciting initiative. And that concludes the consent agenda, and we're ready for action and discussion.
All right. Any questions regarding the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, then I would accept a motion that we accept the consent agenda. So moved. All right. Ken, and a second for Bill. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, we've moved through the consent agenda. Thank you very much. We will now move into closed session. I ask our audience to enjoy the snacks in the back while we fight amongst ourselves.
Well, yeah, we agree with the report, then we're definitely gonna be fighting.
Final.
Yourself, or back to the head.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna call us back in session. All right, we have some action pursuant to our closed session. Is there a motion that will enter the floor?
Yes, based on fine and rigorous work by the Real Estate Task Force Committee led by Capri and the fine work by CBRE, I move that we authorize CBRE to negotiate with Ross Power for a renewal of up to 10 years on our lease.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Read anything else from open session we need to discuss?
From closed session.
Closed session?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you all for your work. Thank you, audience, for your patience while we went through that item, and we'll move forward with that. All right. Next action item we have is on page 15, the Proud RFP recommendations. Connie, will you report on that?
Yes, sir. Okay, so if you look at your handout. If you'll review your handout, it's part of the handout. Under action items, yes, sir. Partners for reentry opportunities and workforce development, which is the Proud brand. We issued the procurement April 23rd. And deadlines were May 9th and June 6th. 6 proposals were received. A team reviewed all, evaluated and scored. So the following proposals scored 70 or higher, which included Unlocking Doors, DFW Economic Solutions, and Lone Star Justice Alliance. So we're going to conduct negotiations with those organizations to determine if the proposals are aligned with the Proud Grant Initiative, and also that their administrative and fiscal systems are in place. Following those negotiations, some of the organizations may or may not be recommended for proposed contracts. The amounts will be brought back to the board for final approval in August. So our recommendation is board authorization to negotiate with the 3 organizations indicated above. All recommendations will be brought back for board approval in August. Any questions?
All right, so does everybody understand what that is? Right? No? Yes? No? Okay. Could you explain that this is not a usual and ordinary funding source that we've gone and outside to seek that?
Certainly. This is an additional grant that we put in with the Texas Workforce Commission, and it will be for over $2 million. It's formerly incarcerated individuals, and we're working with the federal prison system. So the services aren't to get ex-offenders job ready for recruiting. So it's a tough population, but you know, we've got a lot of partners that we're going to engage on this.
So, you know, you've heard me say before, we do some tough work. This is tough work. This is outside of a workforce center that we fund with a WEOA grant. This is an additional grant. So I really applaud staff for reaching out, for accepting the challenge, now finding partners to do that. So I think it's exactly in line with what we as a board should be doing. And it's what sets us apart and earns us some hardware along the way. So.
I just have a quick clarifying question. So is it possible that we could, is it possible that we could contract with really one of these organizations, or is the aim to just pick one?
We can partner with more than one.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. do we need to take action on that one, or we need to move forward with it, with all of them?
We need to take action on this particular one, and then we can move forward with contracts.
All right, so do we need a motion or to,
I'll make it
all right, thank you.
for board authorization to negotiate with those three organizations.
That's what I was gonna say, Phil. We got a second? Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
Contracts and agreements?
That's also me.
Okay.
Dimitri is out and our prayers are with her right now. Contracts and agreements, beginning with adult education and literacy contracts on page 16. Adult Education and Literacy Consortium submitted a grant with the Texas Workforce Commission, and we were successful receiving a grant for over 7 million. And we offer education for English as a second language, high school equivalency, integrated education and training, other workforce type services. And our consortium partners include Dallas College, Irving ISD, Richardson ISD, and Wilkinson Center. We also work with Equus for job placement and career information. So what we're looking at is the overall target of serving 5,141 participants under the ADL program. So we have all the consortium partners listed there. Roughly, it's a 20% decrease from the previous grant that we had. So the budgets are a little bit reduced for each one of our partners.
And is this an annual grant that we seek, or how often is?
No,
We have to go out for bid for this grant, just like the crowd grant we just discussed, so it's not just given to us. Only a few boards in the state actually get this adult education and literacy grant, and typically the procurement cycle is 4 to 5 years. So this is starting a brand new procurement cycle, and these consortium partners were written into the grant, so that's what's already been approved by the state for us to work with these partners listed on your page.
Fantastic. I know Magnus in the room. She will have a conflict here, so we'll so note that. All right, any other discussion, questions about the AEL grant? All right, okay, so I'll move to a motion on that. Get a move, all right,
I'll second.
and Bill second, all right. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
okay, moving forward, youth system service contracts. This is just a one another year for our existing contractors. As a reminder, in career promotion opportunities. We're looking at 750 disconnected youth in Dallas County. So the total dollar amount that we're going to award out. You have that. Actually, you have the total amount. 5.5. So it equates to roughly 7,300 per participant. The recommendation is to work with Dallas College, Equus Workforce Solutions, and with John Burns.
But I just want to point out that, again, when we say top work, look at what we're focused on. Justice involved, adult education literacy, and now youth services. That's what this board should be doing. So great work there. Any discussions on the youth system service? Yes.
So one of the other things that, one of the other things I'm trying to do as I keep learning the board and understanding how to do the work is also to find, before we go to make a vote like this, trying to understand what the around, what's associated with the vote about to take. So what I think I've been able to do is go to page 27, which are our statistics around all of the things that we're voting on right now. We just voted on adult education. The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 statistics are on adult education components. Is that correct?
No, the first, but that's a good point. The first few, metrics that you see on page 27, that's related to our WIOA Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act adult grant. So that's separate from the adult education and literacy grant.
That's all.
Mhm.
Okay, so then would I be incorrect in saying that the metrics that say youth, a little further down,
You're correct.
those are aligned?
Yeah.
Got it, okay. So again, I just think it's helpful for us as we go to make decisions like this, for us to also understand the correlation between the decision we're gonna make. And then again, the statistics that later on down the road, we take a look at, which it can sometimes feel sort of disjointed because it's a completely different concept. Got it, okay.
We do have on the agenda a deep dive on page 27 today. Well, a representative from Equus is going to come up here and explain all that in a minute. All right.
So this is sorry.
Yeah. No. Gunner, you have the floor.
Yeah, no. So this is an, youth citizen service contracts or annual contracts that are renewed for a 12-month period.
Yes.
And you said $7,300. That's, if you take that big number and divide it by 750, you get 7,300. Okay. Sorry, algebra was tough for me.
I had the same question last night. All right, can we get a recommendation, a motion?
So
Second.
Susan? Kim? All right, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, so abstain on that?
This, yes, because what I do, we work in partnership with this and this,
All right,
serving.
so noted. All right, we're going to go to the child care contract amendment. This is just what we talked about, that we need to call these things for votes. And some might argue, well, you don't have any choice, you have to do it, but I think we've heard legal advice that we need to do that. So you want to speak to this one?
I sure can. So at the top of the page, we're talking about the child care subsidy specifically as it relates to children in family and protective services. So we received one specific grant for Department of Federal and Family and Protective Services. And TWC will always infuse that grant should we need more money to serve this population of families. So typically what we do throughout the year in the fiscal department, as we're reporting on this grant monthly, we look to see if we're gonna need some more money before the grant end date, which is August. And we found that we would need some this year. We've seen this many times in the past. I'd say in the last 3 or 4 years, they happened to give us enough money up front, which was kind of something I hadn't seen before. So we're back to where we were a few years ago. I sent an email to TWC, said I need another $1 million. They said, here you go. So all we're asking for you to do is approve infusing child care group's contract with the same amount of money that the state gave us to serve those children in protective services.
All right,
Need a motion to approve.
all right, can I get a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved.
Thank you.
And Rebecca abstained as well.
And at the bottom of page 17, we're talking about childcare quality now. There's no motion or action to be considered here. Really, it's just for your information. It's great news. TWC is going to infuse more money in our childcare quality grants, beginning with board contract year 2025, which begins in October.
Pardon?
Question.
Yes.
How do we know if we're improving policy? I'm just
I'm glad we're getting more funding to improve quality, but how do we measure that? How do we know if we're just paying more for the same quality?
Page 32. Good question. You want to take it, Ashley?
Yeah, page 32 is our childcare quality dashboard. And this is in your packet each month, so all providers are being required by the state to move into this TRS or Texas Rising Star rating system for quality if they want to receive the childcare subsidy. So as you can see, at the very top, we have 643 total childcare providers in Dallas County, and right now we're at 233 TRS providers. So there's somewhere on that scale from TRS to TRS4. And we're working to move more onto that system. And that's a ranking system. They are assessed by the state. We send out childcare group with their mentors to help get childcare providers to the level to be on this system, and also to improve from, say, a TRS2 up to a TRS4.
How long did the 410 providers that are not TRS, how long do they have to comply? And if they don't comply, what happens?
Really good question, and they keep moving the date on me, so I'm gonna look to Rhonda, because I think it's October, but I could be wrong.
Each childcare provider in our program has a 24-month timeline to get to that TRS certification. So from the time they enter our program, they have that 24-month time frame starts too. So the majority of our providers, or any provider that was on board with us since October 2022, initially had a time deadline of September 30th of this year to get that TRS rating, and then everyone else is based on what they can be on. That September 30th deadline is not going to happen for everybody, just the volume of providers across the state and the limited number of assessors to actually go out and do the observations and certify them. But TWC will give us guidance on kind of the process for how that would work. But they do have a time frame. They do have a window. If they don't meet that, then we do have to terminate their agreement with us.
Okay, so follow-up question. So if we look at the chart, there are 410 that are not certified today. And TWC is suggesting that those 410 need to be certified by September 30th.
Not all 410, it's more like 300-ish.
Okay, not much better. Okay, is there anything that this board could do to encourage TWC to have more resources to make this happen?
I'm not sure what their plan is. You could certainly request that. I mean, it would take additional assessors. But I think from TWC's perspective, once we can get over this hump of getting all the ones that were in as of October done, then it will smooth out. It won't be quite as congested, so to speak. The pipeline will be as full. It'll be more of a steady pace of bringing it in. But I'm sure that it's more.
Well, yeah. Well, I think, you know, when I hear that the state doesn't have enough assessors, that's certainly not a problem for the childcare providers, yet we need more childcare providers. I'm being overly simplistic here. But as a board, I'm happy to form a letter to the commissioners that says, get some resources, do something. But that's what we do as boards. So I'm happy to do that if that helps support the call.
I had a very basic question that then may lead me to sort of a bigger question for us to consider moving forward. The basic question is, why do we care about quality? Is that something that the state says you have to care about quality, or is that something that we've said we care about, and so we're going to focus our energy on that?
I think there was a state law that
that passed that said in order to receive this funding, you had to increase your quality. This was very controversial. It took a lot of years to pass it because people thought, look, yes, sure, I would love to have the highest quality, but you're gonna force the one I use in my neighborhood to shut down because we're not meeting your standards. So it took multiple sessions of lobbying from advocates to get this, and now the law is you want state funds, you've got to meet these standards.
Okay, that's extremely helpful, I didn't know any of that. The bigger question is perhaps one that maybe we don't completely think about, because I don't know if it's necessarily correlated with how we got to this point. But if we're in the world of trying to make sure that more institutions are becoming high quality, I'm just intellectually curious as to whether that then correlates to performance of the children that are actually in the more high quality facilities. Because really, I'm thinking about like the economic mobility world now. These kids are also gonna end up somewhere else. I realize that gets us into the world of possibly mission driven. And I don't know where these providers are in total. A lot of them are external or they're in some of the school systems. But maybe that's a thing where I don't know, the childcare, the.
Yeah, I mean, does the assumption that we're making, the state, is that higher quality leads to better child outcomes. That's the assumption. There's not any evaluation that this board or the state supports that tracks child outcomes.
Yeah.
That's just,
At the current state of it, we don't have any, yeah. I used to get like 3 buckets. The first was get more kids into childcare because it's helpful for people to one, go to work because they've got a place. And then it's ideally, if it's second, high quality, it's gonna lead to better outcomes for the kid. And then third, knowing whether or not that's actually happening. But right now, it feels like there's bucket 1 and bucket 2. We may not be able to ever get to bucket 3.
I don't think it would be impossible to get to bucket 3, but it would take some coordination and collaboration between state agencies such as TDC and TPA, which would be more your forte than this, but that's because the data exists.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think there's off topic here, but just to sum it up, so the assumption is, that was a perfect question, Dan, is how do we know there's quality? Our assumption is if you have higher quality childcare, then you will have better outcomes for children, which is better in general. The influx of quality dollars and how that ties to quality outcomes, the assumption is that more quality dollars, that will drive more TRS centers. That's the assumption. But to Carter's point, one of the kind of clauses in pipeline is there may be greater quality. The state doesn't have enough assessors to move the process along quickly. So I mean, there are a lot of moving parts there and a lot of assumptions, because what I would say is what we spend on quality, we don't really tease out which looks to be more effective and which is not. I don't even know if that's possible, but there, there are a lot of assumptions here. Causation and some potential correlation, but I don't think that we stretch. So.
Susan, is there a way to co-opt these groups together so they could latch onto the accreditation? That makes sense. If we're lagging so much.
That is a question. I think you can go on in terms of the assessors or how they work together.
Well, I've got 300 entities not approved, but like maybe 150 of them could co-op with each other.
That's a good question.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that we're looking at to possibly implement on this next year. We have a lot of very tenured childcare program owners and operators that just informally mentor others and bring them along. And so we are looking at kind of putting a system in place, ready to get them to help us and maybe compensate them in some way. But a lot of them do have their own networks, they support each other, they do training together, they give advice, they talk about what works for them and what doesn't work. And so, we would definitely like to get that.
That would seem faster than inventing new assessors.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the thing is you have to have a state assessor that verifies. Yeah, so you understand that. Yeah, I think that is an interesting opportunity though, and I don't want to get away in the weeds here, but if you were to compensate some of the already TRS centers to actually be mentors and use quality dollars for that. That seems like that would be a really smart investment. Yeah.
All right, so the reason for the discussion, just so everyone knows, 90% of our budget is childcare related. So that's why we really have a childcare task force that's digging in the weeds. It seems like this is where this discussion belongs as far as action that we might need to take as a board. Let's just consider this pre-discussion, and maybe something comes out of that committee where we can send a letter or make some calls or do. But did you want to say?
I just want to add one more thing. It's a little bit, it's not your same total numbers of providers, but it's, these providers do not get the same level of funding. They have to meet certain standards. Funding goes, it's a more complicated formula, but essentially the state will match what parents can pay at each center, and as you know, that varies greatly. So they have the same standards without the same dollars, just something to keep in mind.
It's not a per student rate?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, the four-star program is gonna get more reimbursement than
Yeah.
a one-star.
You're charging, I'm gonna make this up. Yours in Pleasant Grove, and you're saying you're gonna charge parents $100 a week. That's what the state is gonna pay. If you're in another zip code and you're charging 400 to a parent, that's what they're gonna get from the state.
Got it. Okay.
Carter, one other quick observation. It appears that while we only have about a third of the providers are PRS certified, more than half of the children enrolled are in programs that are certified.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, a positive thing. In other words, if they're larger organizations that take on more children.
Yeah, it's probably easier or easier is probably not quite the right word, but more affordable for a larger center to become certified because they have a little bit more margin than a small organization.
Trustee, did we answer your question?
I did very well look at it.
Well,
Put in the minutes, that's
There
the
ain't
last
no-
question that Dan ever asked.
Hearing no further discussion, we'll move along. Let's move into our committee. Do we take any action? Okay, all right, let's move into our committee reports and, we'll look who's up first.
And I'm not taking any questions. Okay, so we're gonna be on page 19. Thank you. And the strategic planning committee, to remind everyone, the mission of the strategic planning committee is to recommend a facilitator to help the entire board as a committee as a whole to develop the strategic plan and to propose timelines. And that is what we are doing today. We interviewed the top 3 vendors who did it on our RFP. We sent the RFP, by the way, to just about everyone we could think of, and to every vendor that was recommended by someone forward. So we cast a very, very wide net. The staff evaluated the 6 bidders who replied and then ranked them, and we, as a committee, on June 7th, interviewed the top 3. And before that interview, we circulated a question. Sorry about that. We circulated a questionnaire to see if anybody had any additional questions to ask the potential vendors on our call. So we interviewed the top 3 for about 30 to 40 minutes each. And the committee's consensus, and we didn't take a vote in the committee, but the clear consensus of the committee was to basically recommend what staff had recommended. The top ranked vendor that submitted a proposal was Tip Strategies. They have extensive experience in the workforce area. They work with the North Texas Workforce Board, which works surrounds us. We're in the middle of the donut, so that they know that the Dallas market very well. They get involved in drafting, leading the drafting, statewide action plan, that's workforce commission, and they have a lot of experience around the nation with workforce boards. It was very clear after the meeting, when we came to me, review what the interviews had produced, that this group was most experienced and most expertise, and as you said, the most energy in the presentations. You'll see on page 19 the timeline that they proposed, the committee is an appropriate timeline. It's seven months from the date it started. In their proposal, they were looking at a June 7th start. Where I was going to be a month behind that because they haven't started yet. We approved this today. We'll be 7 months from today to be in compliance with this timeline. Timeline is flexible, and in the recommendation we're going to make to the board, we're going to ask that the board provide flexibility, discretion on part of the chair to adjust the timeline as appropriate. And part of that includes taking into account when you have an executive director in place. But there's a lot of back and forth that can be started right now before we have the executive director in place, just in terms of looking at data and research. And so in terms of the RFP, as you will recall, we did not put a dollar amount in the RFP. We did discuss it in response to your question that we had budgeted $250,000, but that wasn't part of the RFP. And but it turns out that all of the bidders were within that range. And in fact, TIPS had the lowest bid, and they also provided employees 25% pro bono discount. But even if you exclude the cost factor, if you completely exclude the cost factor, TIPS Strategies was the top rated potential vendor. So with that, I'll ask Connie to grammatically correct any errors that I. So it would be the recommendation of the committee to approve the contract with TIPS Strategies and to also approve the proposed timeline as with the provision that the timeline can be adjusted by the chair at his discretion as appropriate. So with that, I'll open up the questions.
So I know that they're based in Austin, and other than the contract that they had with North Central Workforce Solutions, do they have enough of a presence in Dallas?
Well, will they have a contract or will do work with the North Texas Workforce Board? So
Yeah, that's yeah. But is there anyone else that do they have much of a presence in the Dallas?
in terms of an office, this location.
That's from, just clients primarily. Do they know this market?
Yeah, yes, I think they know this market extremely well. And certainly by virtue of the fact that they are, they do work for our sister organization. As you just said, so that's the Download Tax Board. And they also did the work for the strategic plan for workforce initiative taxes.
And if I recall, I remember looking at the resume, they know people that you know and I know, so they've done work, a lot of work. In Dallas County.
And look at their reference list, and see that they're based in.
There being no other questions.
Excuse me, I might add a few.
Sure.
They've done some support for the city of Dallas as well as for the city of Arlington and also Powell Mountain. Not only that, they collaborated with the state TWC to work with Alamo, Workforce Solution Alamo capital area, and also we will. They've done some work with it as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Miguel.
Yeah, it's more of an encouragement, I think, so looking at the timeline. You get to October, which is what it feels like perhaps is the time that the board will engage. One of the things that I would encourage them to do, also because we hopefully will be having sort of a new leader in the organization coming in around this same time, who very quite possibly could also be trying to orient themselves around the community, better understand the dynamics. I see SWOT analysis, I see stakeholder engagement. Prior to that, I see occupation and industry prioritization, benchmarking, investments. I can easily see a strategic plan like this being one where it's like, okay, where are the jobs? How do we get the people ready for the jobs? What are the targets that we want to hit? Then let's go ahead and go do that. If that's what manifests by the time is, at least I know I'll have the time questions around things like, what do they know about the work that Dallas College and Dallas ISD have been doing over the past half decade in the world of workforce? What do they know about the growing childcare landscape? And, how much improvement has been made when it comes to the actual academic outcomes for kids? What has the mayor been trying to do for the past few years? And how does that potentially play a role in what we're doing here? My encouragement to them would be really have a robust landscape analysis done. That's not just informative to the board, to better understand how we really position ourselves to be the leader in workforce, but also position our CEO to be a leader, because I think I've heard the board say multiple times now, we want this person to be out there, a visionary, talking and proselytizing around the concept of workforce, and to be seen as a servant here. If the strategic plan comes back and it's, here are the jobs, here's what we need to fill up, here's how typically other workforce boards have done that, I think we'll miss smart. I have no reason to believe that we will, because I'm sure there's been a ton of thought to how we ultimately see these people, but that would be my.
Yeah, I think what you suggested is very much consistent with what they presented.
Well, I just point out, I've been on board 8 years. We haven't had a strategic plan. You are the community representatives. You will have a voice. And we will have a plan which we'll execute to next year. So I couldn't be happier with.
I have to say, I can have a voice, but I don't know a lot of the stuff that I just talked about. I know some of the DISD and Dallas College stuff, but all this other stuff, I don't know what the mayor's been doing for the past couple of years, but clearly it matters to him and he thinks that we're not fitting a particular.
Sure.
So he's done this. So I guess my point is simply to say, we all know a little bit about this. Some of us know more than others. I think it's who else out there do we need to be engaging that knows the stuff is going to set the CBO.
Well, I think we lean on their expertise, which is they've done this for Alamo, they've done this for Capital, they've done it for TWC. So we've got a seasoned professional that understands workforce. When I first came on the workforce board, I didn't know how to spell it. Right? And they kept.
How did you get on the workforce board if you didn't know as
well? It's a long story. I do that all the time.
It's a follow-up segment.
Gunn, take us someplace else quickly.
Yeah, just real quick, in terms of hiring a new CEO, and I might have missed this and new, where does that align with this schedule? Because I do think it's unfair to a new executive to just throw a strategic plan in for her that they had no voice in helping develop.
Next question.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to fully bad.
I mean, I think what, the motion does is it takes into account that.
Okay.
We would, the recommendation is, let's go ahead and hire them, get them started, and we can adjust the timeline.
Okay.
As appropriate, depending upon, when we actually hire the executive director. But there's a lot of background work that has to be done, just gathering information, looking at data, seeing what we've got, just understanding the universe.
So this is kind of a 6-month contract with them? Or we could extend it, I said,
No, it's not a 6-month contract, it's for the whole project.
okay. I'm just looking at the dates, August 24 through January 25.
Yeah, it's
What happened?
it's a guideline.
Yeah, okay. We could extend it or.
Yeah, it's
shrink it.
Yeah, we're probably not gonna be able to shrink it, but we could certainly extend it,
It's
and I
completion of the project.
Sure.
And just, the search committee will tell us that we have 5 candidates that will be interviewing this Friday. So that gives you some feel for where we're at in the process.
Thanks, Carter.
Yeah.
I
All right.
agree with just a second Gunner's comment.
Yeah.
It's piling on.
All right. Well noted. Thank you. Great discussion. I think we're looking for a recommendation at this point or a motion. So moved. Who was that? We get, all right. And Rebecca. All right. Any other discussions? All in favor? All right. Thank you. Good job. Dan, thank you for your work on that.
yeah, Mr. Chair, the other thing that I would say is that this concludes the work of the committee. Now, if you would like to, appoint another strategic planning committee to implement this or to be the liaison with TIP strategies, I think that committee should be composed primarily of the officers. We need buy-in from the top of our leadership as we move forward, and then some other members who may want to participate or who you think would fill in the gaps. But I don't think it would be good to have a committee that is not composed of the officers being the primary liaison with the facility.
Thanks for bringing that point up. One of the things that I heard, keep in mind that a year ago we had no committees. And this board had operated without committees. And one of the things that was really important to me was that we implement committees to boil down the work and dive deep. And we've certainly done that. But what I didn't want to do, and I heard from you clearly, was that I want to be part of the strategic plan. I don't want a committee forming the strategic plan. So we formed the committee just to pick the resource that we would use to form the strategic plan. And that way you get your voice. And so I hear your recommendation or your suggestion that we consider having the officers lead the strategic plan, but we're not going to develop a strategic plan without you, because you're the voices of the community. So I appreciate that. Let me take that under consideration, and we'll move on that in the next meeting. All right, thank you. Did we get a vote? We did. Yeah, all right.
Yes.
Harry, would you step up to the plate?
Thank you, Committee Chairman Creator Carter. On June 21. You did not spell it. On June 21, the CFO of Workforce received our statement of insurance just after the board packet was assembled and posted, but we do have a handout available. I had my capacity as chair and treasurer, had initial chance to review it, consult with my insurance coverage partners in the law firm for benchmarking purposes on P&O and FWE and data breach. Coverage was bound effective 7/1/24 for a year. Our committee is gonna meet on July 24th, 9 a.m. We have met and formed our charter, so all committees catch up with us. But we'll meet virtually. But you'll see the schedule of insurance in the handout. It is actually my recommendation. We ratify renewal of these risk management coverages as is. This actually happens in August usually, I think, Ashley told me, but we got this early and we're not meeting next month. So I will ask for anyone to make a motion, unless you want to talk about it some more, and have a second. Let me catch up with Bart. Any discussion?
What's the increase in premiums for the suggested renewals?
Can you take us through the numbers?
It was 2% increase, and I believe we're at about $175,000 a year for the premiums.
That is under the president's approval threshold.
All right, well, when I hear insurance and hear 2%, I want to quickly vote yes.
Right.
Make a motion.
The motion is ratified, yeah.
All right,
Motion to
motion and a second?
Second.
Second, no, all right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? So noted. All right. We will move, Rebecca to the outreach committee.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, the committee met on June 12th virtually, thanks to all of the committee members who could attend, considering the date change. We decided to, one, change our name, our committee name to we were working on a few things. One is we are looking at workforce centers, data, and we're also talking about communications outreach. So the committee came up with a very cool name. We will now be the Achievement Alliance Committee. We tasked Kaylin with a communications plan. It is included in your package. We reviewed, provided input. They came up with mission, internal and external communications, our approach, which is targeted messaging, strategic partners, commitment, a message pyramid and key narratives to consider, which you will see. Some of the pillars we discussed were access to jobs, better jobs in the skilled workforce, all-in-one resource, quality of life enhancement. You'll see key messaging continued, some slogans we discussed that we liked, that we thought would resonate with our audiences. We also discussed campaigns by targeted audience, as you'll see, and thinking of our targeted audience as employers, job seekers, youth, women, community organizations, general public, parents and guardians. Some of the things that we asked for as well were template emails for us to send about current services and workforce events so that board members can share those with our contacts. More social media friendly graphics on upcoming events, which we got from Maria. If you should have received an email from Steven yesterday, that includes the social media graphic you all can share on please share on your LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever you use, talking about upcoming job fairs. And we also are excited to announce that we are very close to the website relaunch, which Felix will show us in just a few minutes. Other next steps are the 2023 annual report, more to come on campaigns by target audience. We discussed CEO newsletters to stakeholders. That would be something from Workforce Solutions that would go out to the public that very clearly states things that we're working on, upcoming events, and will make it easier for all of us to do that outreach. So I will invite Brian to come up and share the website with us.
Hello, everyone. As part of what we were doing, so a few months ago, we.
Hang on just a second, Brian.
Okay.
We want to welcome Brian Hernandez. He's with Bay Links, and this is the company that we hired back at the beginning of the year to teach us and assist us with our communications. Thank you, Brian.
So we got together a couple months ago and we talked about strategy, right? What did this board really want to do with its outreach and its communications? And the first thing and the most priority thing that you guys really said was you want to be more audience driven. This idea of creating content that's going to be consumed by the audience in a much more favorable fashion. And more importantly, it's going to be really useful for them on multiple different platforms. So what we did was we took all the information you guys provided as far as strategy, we developed a communication plan. We talked through that with the committee. We made some updates to it. That plan had been approved as of last month. And the first project we really wanted to take on was the relaunch of the website. So my team took it on a couple weeks ago. I think we got the okay to go ahead and start redesigning this. So really what we're looking at now is an effort on our part to really focus in on enhancing accessibility and engagement. Most important thing we saw was that we really needed to focus on delivering significant value through intuitive design and comprehensive resources and improved navigation. One of the best things about, really looking at developing out a new strategic plan, developing out a new communication plan, is really thinking about how are you telling your story? How are you getting it out to the community? How are you creating value for them? But more importantly, how are you turning them into advocates? So one of the first things we wanted to do really with this layout is make it as easy and navigatable as possible. And one of the best things we started to do was really look at every other board across the country and not do what they're doing. We really wanted to see, how can we improve this? How can we learn from other industries? How can we learn from a lot of different types of templates that are out there? So what we did was we made a recommendation to the board to go with the WordPress CMS, basically, which is used by millions of websites. But more importantly, what that's going to do is be a cost-saving mechanism for the board. I came from a board where we spent over $100,000 on a website because they wanted everything brand new and everything customized. You guys are spending $10,000 or around that, to get this website open. What that's allowing me to do is really tap into what's currently being developed on WordPress and find the right templates and tools in order to deliver on your vision. So you don't have to pay for all that development. We're trying to make it as cost-effective as possible. But more importantly, for a mobile audience, they'll be able to engage with all your content seamlessly. So there's really no distraction at all from moving from a desktop or laptop environment to the mobile. More importantly, I did a really strong assessment of a lot of other mobile sites, and a lot of workforce boards haven't considered this, but they haven't really paid attention to their accessibility and haven't paid attention to their language requirements. DOL requires that we provide language versions in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, but then you can expand that as well. And a lot of other boards don't have that on their mobile sites. They may have it on the desktop site, but not their mobile sites. So we've been not only testing for accessibility and ADA requirements, we've also been testing for language requirements as well, making sure that that's consistent and seamless and it isn't, skewed by what AI is going to do. And speaking of AI, one of the biggest things we're trying to do with the website as well is not just make you search engine optimized, but also answer engine optimized as well for AI. We want to make sure that you're going to be popping up into results and people pop in. I'm looking for a job. How can you help me in Dallas County? That we pop up as one of the first results on that without having to pay a lot of money to direct marketers that level us up on those paid results. We can do that by creating a lot of original content, being an authentic source of content and value for customers. But more importantly, we're constantly creating fresh perspectives and fresh discussions that are going to fuel those engines and bring people back to your website. So anybody have any questions about kind of where we're going with this? Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, I couldn't be happier to see a new website. It's like a birthday present for me. The question is, how easy is it to update the content? 1, 2, where are you going to get the content? And 3, a comment that our current content is not stale, it's molded. So,
yeah, that's a great question. So one of the reasons we want to do with WordPress as well, and the theme we're using is called Avada. It's a certain template that's used by millions of sites because it's so easy on the back end to navigate and to use. And I've used thousands of CMSs over the years, having worked with the news business and for workforce boards in the state. This is by far the easiest one I've ever used. And what that's going to do is it's going to translate into more activity. Right, so as you start to open this up to the board staff, possibly even center staff and childcare staff, that they'll be able to go in there and update events, update listings, update website pages to make sure that it's current and relevant. But more importantly, as far as content, we want to make sure that we're, starting SEO and AEO, we want to make sure that we're creating a lot of fresh content. And that's really going to be tapping into the expertise of everyone in this room, including the board members as well. really learning from your experiences, learning from what you're doing in your own industries and bringing that knowledge back. But we can compartmentalize that in blog stories, we can compartmentalize that in videos, we can do that in different types of, for instance, customer testimonials that we organize as well. So the content is endless, it's just a matter of really organizing it amongst the staff and getting it flowing into the site to make sure people are trained in what they use.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, I just have a comment. Thank you, and Workforce Solutions, it's our name, we can't get away from it, but it's such a business jargony sounding name that if someone is looking for a job, they don't think workforce solutions, they're not, it's like energy solutions, technology solutions. It just doesn't sound like it applies to someone who is trying to find a job. And I like the direction you're going in, that you need help finding a job. You know, contact Workforce Solutions, no cost to you, something that delivers that message. But, you know, as I see our signage when we go to places, Workforce Solutions, well, what does that mean? Is that a private company that is, you know, trying to connect business to business? So somehow, while we have to use our name, we're proud of our name, we're proud of the work, it doesn't have that connection to someone looking for a job. And so I would emphasize you to go even further in that direction of, you know, making sure that we've got a lot of people who don't have a lot of education, who need jobs, and just seeing our sign doesn't really make them think, oh, this is where I should go. Thank
Well,
you.
and that's part of our responsibility as well as your communications consultant, is to really help develop that brand out further, right? This is something we're really trying to emphasize this year, is that, you know, workforce development isn't just a resource at a time of crisis. That we're able to provide your entire workforce journey, a young person who can serve career paths, to someone who becomes an entrepreneur, ready to train their own workers. And that's really kind of what we're doing with this website as well, is making sure that this is the landing spot for those three primary groups of people, right? It's employers and industry, it's job seekers or incoming workers looking to transition, and then it's also families looking for childcare and providers looking to increase the quality of their care. And that's really how this website is kind of split up into those three audiences. So if you scroll down to the bottom as well, you'll be able to see kind of how we did it. So again, the top part is really just a video that we can update as needed. Again, in the first section is for people to contact us. The next thing is going to be testimonials from customers. And then we split up into three different parts of the website very, very quickly. Some sites do this as soon as you land. And we were concerned about people getting lost and not really identifying where they should be going. Because a lot of other boards use the term job seeker. But you may already have a job and looking to increase your skills. You may not be a job seeker. You may want to stay with your current employer. So we were worried about people getting lost. And I heard a lot of complaints about that at our boards. So what we did was we transitioned with the board. We really identified the opportunity again for messaging for career services, helping someone really level up in their career. Instead of just doing employer resources, we talk about business services, really helping them grow their operations. And then with childcare, it's really all about helping them realize that we're angling them and their family towards early learning success so that they're successful in kindergarten and beyond. So that's really how we try to align the website and content.
I just have one item, you mentioned testimonials. Have we considered like the use of influencers, you know?
And I think, you gotta think, well, you guys are influencers as well. What we need to do is tap into more networks. And there are a lot of people in different spaces that can help echo the message that we're putting out there. And that's part of the larger effort, part of the communication plan to build that advocacy. We need people, we need to just not have them be great, you know, supporters of us and share our content. We want them to talk about you when you're not in the room. I want them to be, tell them to hand out the flyers, hand out the business cards, and to direct people to the website, to make referrals over to us. So that, yeah, that's part of the overall strategy. I think for the most part, the big thing with the campaign plan, the communications plan, the campaign plan, and the website and everything else is that it's very nimble. It can be adjusted for your strategic plan as you start to identify priorities. So what we wanted to do is give you the tools and resources and guidance now, work on these upcoming projects to get us through the fiscal year. And as you develop your strategic plan, make any adjustments necessary to the plan and to the tools so that we're delivering on your vision.
And I was just gonna add to Dan's point about, you know, just kind of the branding and, you know, when I saw the building brighter futures, that's a little flowery, right? But when you look at your success starts here, elevate your career, empower your business, to me, that resonates. So how do I benefit from this, right? So I just wanted to make sure that.
Awesome, that's great. Yeah, and I think, you know, we can't, I used to hear, I don't know, people talk all the time about, we're not in the program business, we're in the solutions business, right? And we need to have messaging that reflects that. So that people know that, you know, they're coming to us, they're not just gonna get acronyms, right? You have thousands of acronyms in workforce development, as I'm sure a lot of you are learning. But more importantly, they're gonna get a result that's going to be tangible for them.
I have a question. Just want to make a comment. Thank you for considering accessibility up front as you're developing this. But my question is, do you have anyone looking at your site who actually uses assistive technology to be able to give you feedback?
Yes, we've actually been testing it on different types of technology, but more importantly, I've had contacts at TWC. Once the board gives me approval, I'm going to be working through the VR department there and have them test it out as well. I did that with prior on the board, and they were very instrumental in giving us some insights and how we can just really clean certain things up, right? We're in a lot of ways, and sometimes we over aim, right, or we're trying to deliver. In reality, it actually creates more challenges. So sometimes you just need to scale back, you know, adjust the coloring, adjust the, you know, the brightness of the fonts and things of that sort. Sometimes that's they can help smooth that make no vision.
Specifically for screen reader users, I'm thinking in terms of being able to navigate and having graphics with underlying text so that it will be described.
Definitely. And one of my chief contacts there is Melinda Paninsky.
Yes.
She's one of my best friends, so and she's actually helping me out as well. But I'm not sharing anything outside until you guys give me the go ahead and do that. I want to make sure that we're matching your vision first, and then we go ahead and do additional testing to make sure that we're.
Thank you.
Sure.
Just quickly, some comments at a time. To Lisa's point, I mean, these messages, at some point, you'll have data that suggests, you know, which messages actually resonate with the target audience. So it's a little bit different than just what sometimes our opinions are in the room. But I was going to ask you, great work and as a consultant, wonderful. But I just wonder who on our side actually owns this, because this is a full-time job this day and age. And the website is just a hub to the scope of the social media strategy and everything else, ensuring content to continue to be updated so that we're not needing to have our content come to the top. And so I just want to know on our side, who owns this?
I can answer that. This is one of the things that I was shocked to learn. We do not have a communications person on staff. And other boards have many communications people on staff. So the last committee meeting, we brought this up and made the recommendation, and the staff, the team agreed that we are hiring 1 or 2 communications people. This is, if you all recall, our conversation a few months ago about additional headcount, and I think we ended up on total of 4. So from those, we will have a communications person, but at some point, we really do need to revisit that because we are so much leaner staff wise than everyone else, but we won't be having somebody do it. Only like that.
And I'm happy to facilitate and happy to consult as well. And also I've worked with TIP strategies for years. I know the boards also have comfort working with them as well and their leadership as well. So yeah, it can be as seamless and integrated as you guys.
All right. Rebecca, thank you for your committee's work with us. Fine, thank you for your work and keep telling our story. Okay, Joanne. Is she here?
She's on the first one.
Right behind.
Welcome. Now I take it back to me. Okay. Joanne is leading our governance committee, and she's been working hard on our bylaws. Oh, one more thing before we move on. Rebecca, thank you for your continued work on this. Rebecca's had a job change, and so her to continue to completion is a mighty tall task. So thank you for doing that. All right. Joanne, speak.
Great. Hello, everyone. So again, just real thanks to the governance committee. Since our last board meeting, the committee has met twice to continue to review proposed changes with the bylaws. And then also we have from redraft of the committee charters. So we have gotten through now the bylaws and they've been turned around by Reed and his colleagues. And we are in the process of scheduling 2 more meetings, although the hope is that maybe we can finish in just the one, but we have scheduled 2 just in case. And then the hope is that before the next meeting, we will be ready to come to the next meeting with a recommendation for the board to review the revisions to the bylaws and can have that discussion hopefully in August. But at the latest, it would be the meeting after August. But I'm hopeful because we have done a lot of work and think really made some really great progress.
All right, any questions for Joanne? Well, again, you're seeing that we're attacking the very structure of what this organization does. And that's what this board wanted to do. So Joanne, thank you for your leadership on that, your hard work. I know digging into bylaws is probably not the most fun thing to do on a Saturday afternoon, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
We're going to skip over the child care advisory. Alan's not here. However, we did cover child care earlier. So I think we've gotten sufficient knowledge on that at this point. I would invite Nicholas from Equus to step up. I've been waiting all morning for the hammer Nicholas with questions and he is up for the task, he tells me. So we'll be going over, you remember, normally Richard, who's on vacation, normally goes over our performance measures, beginning on page 26. And Nicholas from Equus has agreed to dive deep on this. I heard his presentation once before, and I said, we need him before the board. So Nicholas, welcome.
Good morning, and thank you for having me from the great board thus far. So hopefully I'll be able to clarify some of the questions that you all have posed over a couple of board meetings in regards to our current performance that's on the NPR. So before we start, I really want to talk about specifically that performance is at the forefront of what we do and how we actually provide services to our participants. And so as the contractor, our main focus is to ensure that the quality and what we do matches the actual performance that comes out of that. And I know sometimes when you look at NPR, it can somehow create this idea that maybe we're not performing at the level we should. But I really want to take some time to walk you through some of the metrics that we're not meeting so that you can ask questions and understand how we're able to resolve and be able to drive that performance back into a meeting standard. So I'll be able to qualify that for you. I'll start with my presentation and then go into some of the added plans or before we have questions. So, first things first, when we look at Greater Dallas, I want you to really understand the amount of customers who we actually see in our centers. I think that is very important. When you look what I'm showing the customer visits, what I've been able to do is showcase how many customers we've been able to see last year in our board contract year 23, and then look at where we are today in our board contract 24 through June. As you can see, we've had over 92,000 job seekers actually enter our workforce centers that come in, and we're able to log them in for services when they come in. So not every participant or every job seeker who comes into the workforce center actually shows up on the NPR because they're not actually a program participant, but they do receive services. They do get upskilled. They do participate in some of our job fairs. They do participate in workshops for resume writing and things of that nature. And there's a lot of great work that goes into that. So I wanted to show specifically, especially on the right side where you see the green report, you'll see specifically what are the top reasons that job seekers actually walk into our workforce center. So you'll see, that's fine. Bob said, Well, I'm here to use the resource room is at a 25% total of all of our participant population that actually comes in. Right behind that, we have in-person services, and then we have I need help finding a job, it's 11%. Now, this is very important when you kind of look at the blending of the services that our participants or our job seekers are looking for. Because when you look at our PPR, it's looking at those who actually come in from that orientation of WILA or maybe the 10-week, which is UI claims. So this is something that I wanted to show. Right now, our trajectory of participants that are our job seekers that's coming into the center, we're at an increasing rate this year. So we'll end up serving more job seekers coming into the resource rooms at our centers this year than we did last year. I'll walk next into our actual performance breakout.
Two questions.
Yes, sir.
Opportunity and international. On the first part, what is opportunity and international?
The Opportunity Center, is a center that's downtown, it's off of, Malcolm X. It's actually, in our park, in our Opportunity Center part, where we have a lot of different community agencies. We have a food pantry that's on site as well, because we don't run it, but it's one of our agencies that is able to assist our job seekers. So when you see Redbird, that's at Redbird Mall, that's one of our center locations. I believe some of the board members have actually done site visits where you actually have come in and walk through to see specifically how are we serving the participants. I think one time you all came, we had a job fair at Redbird. When you look at Pleasant Grove, we had to talk about Pleasant Grove earlier, that's the center there. So these are all of the 8 centers that we have active right now.
International district.
Okay, good.
That's the old Valley View Galleria area.
And second question, right, guess I'm trying to figure out, I'm not sure that there's a direct, response to this, so. Most of our work in child care space is from budget standpoint. So how many years do you track, how many people come in specifically looking for childcare, or did that not really happen here, that happens somewhere else?
Well, with childcare, those participants, we don't decide when they actually come to us, but we actually get involved in the greeter system based off of why they're coming. Now, it doesn't mean that if they say, I need help finding a job, and they work with someone who's assessing them, that we may not uncover barriers such as childcare and things of that nature, and then we'll, make those referrals in regards to community agencies who we partner with. But when we're looking at the greeter report, when they walk into the center first, we're asking them specifically, what brings you in today? And then from that, we're able to notate specifically why they came in. So another thing is when a participant walks in, they may come in this week and say they need a job. We may help them get a job. It doesn't stop them from coming in, a month later saying, I need help with something different, you know what I mean? So one of the things that's important about this report, it's showing the activity of the participants or the job seekers who are actually showing up. Not just those who are coming just for a specific service, but sometimes they don't know exactly what they're looking for. And we get a chance to assess and be able to help them more specific.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask it maybe a little different way. If there was an option here that says I'm looking at, where it's a job search for sports services instead of child care services. In your guess, would that be in the 20s, would that be in the 10? How many people come in? Is that high on as well?
Based off the volume of participants we actually serve, I would have to look to see if that's actually specified in the actual greeter piece. I don't want to guess, I don't like to guess because it can be misleading sometimes, but I can look more closely into that data and get a better depiction of that.
Nick, question, I don't know the answer, I just thought I'd ask. Those that come in for childcare, would they be listed under the support services line?
Yes, they can actually come under support services or under the array of some of the other services. And what we do, once they come in, then we're able to kind of refer them directly to specific department or someone with the expertise to be able to assist them. But in regards to the question, would it say childcare? I would have to look at the coding of the greeter system to see if that's an option. But yeah, you would be correct. Childcare is lumped into support services, so
in a sense, they would be grouped in there, but I would look to see which out there is an actual code. Because going forward with our teams, if we would start communicating childcare specifically and not have it lumped in, then we can actually have a 10-year code better.
I just wanted to add that there's childcare subsidy programs integrated in the workforce centers, so sometimes people may go because they need a job. Well, that's why they're going, they need a job, and they might say, well, I do have this issue, okay, hop on over here, you may qualify for a subsidy program to get childcare.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, I'll move over so we can actually.
Okay, we have one more question.
Okay, go ahead. I was trying to wrap my mind around many spaces. So there's a percentage of this. And that percentage in that column adds up to 100%.
This one is the top 90%. We have other services that fall underneath that.
No, I'm sorry, on the left, customer visits, I see 27% for Redwood. Is that a 27% decrease in customer visits this year versus last year at the end of the year?
Oh, my apologies, that's the actual weight of how many customers visit Redbird out of the total customer visits for the project.
Okay,
So Redbird makes up 27% of the total traffic that we've seen.
that's all. Okay, so that percentage is not correlated in any way to BCY 23 and BCY 24.
No.
Yeah, that's not year over year because we're not complete. 23 represents probably 12 months, 24 would represent 9.
So so on Redbird, BCY 24, 18,141 visits. That data was pulled from what month?
Through June.
Right, so the contract ends in June.
The contract ends in September.
Yeah. That's our calendar year.
Gotcha. All right, so
I'm so sorry.
2 years. Yeah.
right, I got you today. So then the last question I've got, I guess, is in that, what you're showing us on customer visits, what we look at on page 27 in our packet, which is what Bridges presents on a monthly basis. Those numbers should essentially line up. 18,141, 10,646, all of that cumulative should roughly be about what we're seeing in our packet.
Essentially, depending on the actual coding he uses in the report. Some of the ones that I use actually specify just for our sensors. We do have like a telephone sensor that may populate. So for my data, I only use the actual sensors that we have, which are the 8 centers that are. It should correlate 1-to-1. But again, I'm only looking at the 8 centers directly, not the full population of Greg House.
Okay, that's all.
Which will include, you have Richmond College, some other partners. All right, thank you. So I'll move ahead. But I'll back it out. But what I wanted to show here, specifically, I wanted to look at our year-over-year performance trend. And so you will be able to see, all right, that's good. You'll be able to see specifically how Equus has performed, starting from board contract year 21 all the way to current with the March PR. So if you take a look, you'll see specifically from a performance standpoint, these are the 8 measures that we are not meeting right now. So I don't want to focus on the measures that we are meeting, I want to focus on the ones that we are not meeting. And so that includes the adult measure of skill gain, the adult credential, the ability, all of which is here. Some of the trends that I wanted to show you that pop out is we haven't really had issues with performance over the years. We've always been able to meet our benchmarks that the state has set for us. And then you can actually see the denominator that's associated with each metric that you see listed. So for the first row, you'll see adult measurable skills gain, which looks at all of the participants in the adult program that actually had a training component. How many of them actually had a successful outcome during the training? You'll see we were plus P in board contract 21, plus P in 22, and then plus P in 23. We have some issues right now currently, and I'll be able to speak to that. The legend shows that plus P is exceeding performance. The MP shows that it's meeting performance, and the negative is not meeting performance. This is essential because when you're looking at the metrics, you will see where we can overperform, where the state wants us to be at, and then of course with negative, you'll see where we're underperforming. But I wanted to highlight specifically the population of participants that's falling into each metric. These participants are not active participants. One of the reasons why I wanted to show the actual traffic flow in the first slide is because it can be misleading sometimes that all of the jobs that come into the workforce center will populate in performance. They do not, all of them do not enroll into WIOA. So you can kind of see the trend of the population of the denominators across the years. And so again, to your point, we're in March of 2024 with this data, so it's not a complete 12-month cycle. So that's why the numbers, I believe that's. Another thing I really want to highlight that I think will help as you all look at the NPR is each measure has a different reporting period. So if you look at the very end two columns, you'll see the two in the front. You'll see that first measure is looking from July 2023 to June 24. That is a live measure. But the one underneath it, adult credential, all of our credential measures look at all of our participants who were with us and exited in 2022. Why is that important? It is important because many times conversations have come up in the board meetings to say, well, what are we doing today that is going to be able to drive performance on the NPR? These participants who were in 2022 who were exited, they're not current. So these are participants that have exited out. So I have some strategies of what we're doing right now to drive our performance up. But I wanted to show specifically when you are looking at the NPR, always look at the two in the front because it's kind of specified if these participants are active participants that were engaged in the center or participants that we were able to assist over 2 years ago. And I'll jump to the next slide because it'll show you specifically some of the reasons why. Some correlations I found in why performance has shifted down. With these performance trends, there we go. I wanted to show the actual targets for each of the regions. This is very important because with the targets, TWC uses a regression model that impacts the targets at the end of the year. These are things that we don't control directly, they're indirect controls, but you'll see specifically how these metrics are actually adjusted and increased over the years. So if you take a look, you'll see that the first metric was measurable skill gain. That target started at 56% and jumped to 66% in our contract 23. And now it's at 78% in right now with our current contract. Even with our credential measure, you'll be able to see that as well. One of the other ones that I really want to show is our youth credential target, which you'll see that on row 5, where it started at 51.8% and then jumped to 79.4% at BCY 23. And then of course now we're at 70%. And the one underneath that we have median earnings that looks at income, what is the income that the those are able to. So maybe within that quarter after exit, 2 quarters after exit, they need to be at 2,700 back in 22. But then it jumped up to 4,900. Now it's at 5,300. I'm not saying that because the chart is shifting, it's the only reason that we're not meeting our performance, but it is a contributing factor. Because when you look at the NPR at a glance, you'll be able to see all of the big boards that are not meeting certain measures, and there are correlations between that. 5 of the 7 large boards are missing at least 5 measures. That's not typical when you look year over year between the actual NPR reports. And so this is something that I want you all to look at. So when we're actually looking at performance and looking at those benchmarks, we have to pay attention to the regression model and see how that impacts our overall target that we do, because they continue to increase. But we do have ways and solutions that allow us to drive up our performance. So I'll be able to show that in the next slide. Some of the biggest concerns that I've been able to identify, with our measurable skill gains, credential median earnings, 10-week, and our 10-week measure, is the fact that we need monthly case reviews and follow-up. These are things that we are actively doing. These aren't things that we are going to do. These are things that we are actively doing. We actually just completed one of our monthly case reviews for NSG, and we added over 50 outcomes that's going to go into the NPR that should show up and the next few NPRs from the state. One of the key issues that we found, that I found, when we merged from the Swiss system, or migrated from the Swiss system in order to go over to work in Texas, is that right now, we're unable to actually input some of the data that is not 2024. So remember when I was talking about the population reporting period being in 2022? The work in Texas system right now doesn't allow us to correct data or input any data that will give us immediate status for participants that happened prior to 2024. Now, that system will be released, and so we have a repository, tracking of how many cases we'll be able to impact that will show us a meeting. But right now, we're just kind of on standby, and so that's one of the reasons why from NPR to NPR, a lot of the performance does not change because we had complete migrations to work in Texas. Another thing that I've identified with our relationships with some of the metrics is having a better relationship with our training provider. Many of these metrics are not based off of just only how we serve the participant, but getting the actual credentialing and the documentation from the training provider or the outcomes where they went to work and entering that information into the system. And so one of the things that from our quality reviews that we do, we realize that we have to ensure that the data is not inputted once the participant is not exiting, but inputted while they're actually in the actual case, active. And so with measurable skill gains, we can enter as many outcomes as possible. We don't have to wait until the participant ends training before we put that actual outcome in. So staff has been trained to actually input all of the success and the milestones that the participants are having when it actually occurred. And so those are things that we're doing right now that we've been doing that you'll be able to see as the metrics start to go up. When you look at median earnings, I talked about that before, because these participants are those that were served over 2 years ago, the only way I'm able to drive that performance up is I look for exclusions, ways to pull participants out of the data. Maybe they were incarcerated, maybe they were had a medical condition that lasted outside of 90 days. Sometimes we have deaths, and sometimes they go into the military. These are reasons that we can exclude participants out. One of the metrics, the youth metric that we have on tap right now, we have to look for exclusions to pull those participants out. And when we look for earnings for past participants, we have a system that we call, that we utilize called Work Number, that we're able to query those wages. And because CDL is one of our largest training programs, those wages aren't 32 wages, those are 1099 wages. So what we've identified with staff is be able to not only identify participants who actually got training in CDL or truck driving and things of that nature, but to be able to outreach them to get the data, the employment data, because that has to be entered in, it will not just populate. Yes.
Nicholas, just quick question. I mean, it's great that you're digging deep into this, but I assume other workforce boards are running into the same situation. And so do you have an understanding if other workforce boards are also going in to extract maybe some of these outliers? And so maybe our performance could be low because we just haven't done that work. I'm just trying to understand because everyone is pretty much subjected to probably some data points that are not.
Great question. It is not that we haven't done it. Remember, when we're looking at some of these measures such as credential and median earnings, those are measures that are not active. These are measures where those participants exited the program over 2 years ago. So what we have to do is be able to identify some of the errors. Maybe we had some errors in the case, or we identified some documents we should have entered that weren't entered. But remember, with the transition of Twist to WIC from the migration, we're unable to input that data into the system that would normally drive our measures up. In the past, normally with our NPRs, you kind of see that we kind of start off, they may start off in the red, and then as we get to the midpoint of the year, they all go green, 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 green. That's because of that. So what we've started to do over the last the last 2 years, really with our policy changes and procedures and training, we actually have those participants input that information once it's happening each month. My team sends out a report where they can see specifically who's in training, what credentials they should be receiving, and then if they exit training, we get that, employment record entered immediately. You won't see that in this NPR because again, we're looking at 2 years ago, but for future NPR for 25 and future NPRs for the year 2026, you'll see that high correlation. That's great.
Nicholas,
Yes, sir.
I love to get inside your brain. I mean, the statistics, the information, the facts. I mean, it's fascinating that one person can hold this much information. Congratulations.
I appreciate that.
However, these guys got tomatoes, they're about to throw them. So we need to wrap it up.
Okay.
Miguel has a question, but
Getting my tomato ready. We all have tomatoes from Miguel.
Yes.
yeah, and I remember standing in a meeting just like this about 50 years ago. And a buddy of mine, after the spotlight was on me, I sat there and I tried my hardest. And he looked at me after the meeting, he put his hand on his shoulder and says, Carter, when you're explaining, you're losing. And the point is, I look at all the other boards, and we're about collecting hardware. We're not about comparing ourselves to the bottom. So what I think this board would really be interested in is what are we doing to not be at the bottom? There we go.
1000%. There's no tomato. Two things that I was hoping to very quickly say. The first is we get this on a monthly basis and Mr. walks us through it.
Yes.
And that's very helpful from performance management standpoint, that it's generally on month to month how we do. I've been on the board for over 2 years now, I think, maybe 3. This is the first time that I feel like I'm actually getting a sense as to what it is y'all are doing. Specifically, and it's even more important, for the areas that you are very transparently saying, we're not meeting the mark. So what are we going to do to meet the mark? And along the way, you're helping us better understand what it is you actually do. Or I'm not asking anybody else, just for me. Now, I would encourage us, hey, quarterly, because that's where these numbers are being populated, is quarterly to have you come and walk us through.
Exactly.
It's great to also know what are some things that are working for you. About specifically the areas we're not meeting the targets, what is it that we are doing? What are the strategies and solutions? That's the whole thing.
I want to point out one other thing. Bristol, TWC, you need help? She's a wonderful person. She's a great resource. Y'all call
And the second thing is, it's not for you, it's actually for Carter. And so what you're gonna do is something to get us all aligned. This board meeting, for me, felt really good because I can see how the changes you're putting in place, including committees, so on and so forth, are actually manifesting. I think a better understanding of what we're doing and we're trying to accomplish. There's happening, like, we plan along the way, we're hopefully getting close, CEO selection. Got a very thoughtful communications approach, we can see tangible results in that with the website. It makes me feel a lot more comfortable about just transparency and the fiduciary responsibility that we have to the people who send us here.
Miguel, I'll answer that. Great staff, great vendors.
Right, but like you said before, what are we actively doing? I just got back, from a quarterly alignment meeting. So one of the things that Equus does, and of course, Lisa, board, our vice president, she here as well. They probably all of the Equus contract or tech. We got a chance to do exactly what I'm doing right now. Present on what are the best practices, what are the solutions for each measure, not just the measure that we're not meeting, because we don't want to just meet measures, we want to exceed measures, because X is a big deal. So one of the things I can tell you that is happening is we are having those cross board conversations in regards to things. What are you doing as part of it? And many times I can tell you, when you look at the big boards, even like with the 10-week measure, the 10-week minus measure, we're not meeting. You have 6 or 7 of the large boards not meeting that measure. If you were to look on the added plans report. But what we're doing is we're piloting a lot of things. Many of the solutions that actually come within the state, within our projects, actually start in Dallas. because they wanna know what is Dallas doing because we're so big. So I want you all to understand that we're doing the case reviews. We're looking at the data, we're not just looking at data as from a reactive standpoint, but being more proactive. I have to make sure that not only are we taking care of the population of job seekers that comes into the center right now, that they get what they need, but I have to ensure that for future performance, that we are hitting those KPIs that's going to make us look good so we can increase the hardware. Because that's one thing that has always been consistent. So to your point, if this is something we need to do, so this is something we will do.
Right.
And it gets deeper than this, I can give you.
Tremendous value to being here. I'm gonna direct, staff that we take that recommendation once a quarter. And we get, you up there, willing to do that, to give us the data. Because this, when I heard him speak, I was like the same way, Miguel, I was like, it totally makes sense. And this guy, let's read this before he goes to bed at night, every night. So, we're just gonna wrap it up with, we know this is acceptable. We want to hear what the plan is. And next month, we're not meeting, but we want the data and we'll distribute that via a non-package. PwC, you're hearing that if we need to do something to get the data right, let's do it. And we'll support it from the board. Nicholas, thank you for your clear one today. All right.
Thanks. Well, I'm going in. So what I asked for in the last board meeting, I think it'd be helpful, seeing the red P drivers is concerning, but I think understanding targets still doesn't tell the story. So I guess what I need is a variance report that says some explanation for why those individual categories are not meeting performance goals. It's just still just on the page. It makes a little more sense to me, but unless somebody can say adult MSG, we're not meeting performance because of these three things in a narrative format. Anytime I'm looking at the P&L, I need the same thing. I need to know exactly why I need the description, why it doesn't work. I don't even know that I'm 22%. I need to know why. So that's the thing I guess asking for this report to include, which I know will require some manual entry, but that's the only way I can have any context for what's wrong.
It may just be augmented in slide 26. That's where the key takeaways are. Just a couple more comments.
All right, before the tomatoes come this way, we're gonna get two more items in, and then we're gonna. Harry has handed me this, so, Rebecca.
Good morning, I'm Jeanette, Body Manager at Yale Officer for the board. If you look at page 33, give a very brief update on program and fiscal monitoring. Fiscal review for Access is complete, pending the final report from the monitor. The fiscal reviews for Wilkinson Center and Child Recovery are completed, and the determination of any refunds due to the board. And the program review for Child Recovery is complete, pending final report. And a new program review for Sources at NCP actually started this week. Most importantly, at the bottom of the page, you'll see that recently PwC sub-recipient monitoring did issue the annual monitoring report for the review that was completed in November of 2023. There was one finding in the area of child care fraud recoupment, and the board and child care group are working with PwC audit resolution to resolve this finding. Are there any questions?
Thank you. All right, one last thing, I've asked Ashley to update us on the WIOA. This is the federal funding that the state of Texas received. There's been some movement in the Senate on this matter. And so it hasn't been funded for a while. There's been some movement, so I want to give the board an update on that. So Ashley.
Yeah, so WIOA, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, is up for reauthorization. And if you'd like just one more acronym to add to your bait, it's a Stronger Workforce for America Act, ASWA. And I sent you some information about this on Friday in a link with your board packet. I'll say since that time, one of the items I wanted to bring up to you is no longer part of the draft that the Senate is looking at. That's regarding training, so that's good news. We won't even talk about it. There are a couple of areas other than that in the draft that are a little concerning. Number one is there's an opportunity for the state to redesignate local board areas. And the issue with that is that we would not have any say in what that reorganization might look like. And then the second item is that there is a potential to increase the amount of formula funding that the governor can retain at the state level. And that would go from 15% to 25%. If you could increase your budget, why wouldn't you? That would mean that local boards would receive less funding in WIOA dollars. And the push is really to retain that flexibility locally. We know what's best for our communities at any given point in time. So the National Association of Workforce Boards and the Texas Association of Workforce Boards are requesting our support. Specifically, they're asking for you to write a letter to your senators. This has already passed the House of Representatives and it lies with the Senate right now. You have in your handouts today a template letter and instructions on how to submit. So that's your call to action I'll leave you with today.
All right. Hearing no more actions, I will call us into adjournment. Thank you for staying and for your commitment to work.